When other manufacturers release their flagship smartphones, the talk and hype literally goes on for months, but for some reason the Sony Xperia XZ3 no one is talking about, which I believe is the most underrated flagship smartphone in 2019 so far. So in this video we're going to be going over some of the design specs and features of this phone, what I really like about this phone, what I don't like about this phone, and giving my final thoughts on having this phone if you want to pick this up now or if you're deciding to pick up a smartphone in 2019. So let's get started. Hey, how's it going? Adil here with TechBomb. Thank you so much for dropping by to yet another video. Now, flagship smartphones are fantastic, have some amazing specs, but for some reason this Sony Xperia XZ3 hasn't seen the same response as some of the other high-end Samsung S10s the iPhone manufacturers have bought around in the smartphone industry, and it had a hype for about a few weeks and then it just kind of died down. Now, in terms of design, in my opinion, this is the best looking smartphone made by Sony, and some of you may think it has a rather large chin or forehead. Honestly, it doesn't really bother me at all because that beautiful body, every time I look at it, it makes me fall for it every time I see it. Kind of reminds me of the old iPhone 3G models with that curvy body, but this is on a whole nother level, baby. Now, part of why this has a rather large chin and forehead is due to the dual speaker system setup, which has dynamic sound systems, which makes the sound coming from this smartphone like nothing you have experienced before. Now, it may even seem a little gimmicky if I'm honest, but when you turn on the vibration feedback with the dynamic sound, the sound quality and loudness from this Sony phone is absolutely on another level, and you may even forgive this phone for having a rather large chin and forehead after you've experienced the kind of sound that comes from this beast. Now, onto the rear of this phone, you don't have 2, 3 or even 5 cameras unlike other flagship smartphones, which is absolutely insane and brilliant at the same time. This just has a single 19 megapixel f2 camera, which we'll talk about camera details a little later in the video. Now let's take a look at the main attraction of this smartphone, the 6-inch gorgeous 1440 by 2880 OLED display. Now, this is Sony's first OLED display with HDR, which gives you fantastic and deep blacks, super crisp image, vibrant and punchy colors just the way I like them. A few of the key things to mention in this handset: you get a 13 megapixel selfie camera, an LED notification light, a dedicated camera button to open the camera as well as take pictures, a really fast fingerprint scanner on the rear, an SD card slot which also doubles as your SIM tray. This device is also supported by wireless charging and is dust and water resistant. You also get a Snapdragon 845 with 4GB of RAM and 64GB of internal storage, which is quite impressive. So playing the latest 3D games on this smartphone will be no problem, along with everyday use like browsing the web, social media, YouTube and other general apps. It is really snappy, so you don't really need to worry about having low speeds on this beast. Now, the Sony Skin Parlor on top of stock Android looks pretty sweet, with not too much clutter, being fast and snappy, as well as the added functionality of the double tap side option, which enables the one hand mode, which basically gives you a list of the most common apps you use. Now, it's more of a gimmick than anything, and honestly sometimes it just activates without me wanting it to activate, which can be quite annoying. So I've really turned that option off because I just don't really like having the one-handed option coming up when I don't want it to come up. So you know what, unlike me, if you've got small hands, it's very convenient to have you just double tap the side of the phone, and the one-handed options gives you a bunch of options or apps that you have used recently, which makes it a convenient and fast way to use a smartphone of this size. Now, pictures taken in the day, whether it's sunny or cloudy, come out super sharp and crisp as one would expect. The detail is superb, and the bokeh mode is the fake software version of trying to give you bokeh, which can sometimes get a bit jittery and have some artifacting in there. Now, I wasn't really too impressed with the low light performance from the Sony XZ3 smartphone. The low light cameras from Sony, the mirrorless cameras like the Sony a6500, the Sony a7 series, the a7 III, have fantastic low light performance, and that kind of performance hasn't been carried out to the Sony smartphones. In terms of low light performance, Google still does a fantastic job on the Google Pixel 3, and Huawei have a fantastic low light mode, but Sony just doesn't keep up with the big boys in that kind of performance in low light. However, in daytime it is fantastic, super crisp and sharp, just the way you want it to be. On the video side, you can do 4K in 60 frames per second and 30 frames per second, where you get a very well stabilized footage. You can also shoot HDR video or high dynamic range video, which means you get deep blacks and just an overall amazing image, but you do have to have a HDR compatible display to make the most of that. Now you also get the insane 960 frames per second slow motion video, which is just insane, but you have to, like other flagship smartphones, time this slow motion manually, as there is no other way to get the 960 frames per second slow-mo footage. So you have to make sure that you time this correctly, otherwise you will miss your chance. And when I say chance, you have about 0.1 seconds to make the most of that super slow motion. Nevertheless, it is a fun option to have in there. Now, battery life is really good on this handset. With general use, some gameplay and taking pictures and capturing some video, it can last you the whole day with battery to spare, so you can take it over to the next day. But me, I just charge my phone every night because I don't want to go out on the next day with half the battery or less. Now, there's nothing really to hate on this phone other than it being super slippery, not having the greatest night mode camera, and a rather gimmicky double tap side panel, which is optional, so you can turn it off. So it's not really something I don't like in this phone, but if you can turn it off, then it's gone and you don't have to worry about it. Well, that's it from me, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Hope you guys have a fantastic day, and be sure to hit that like button, smash that subscribe, and I'll see you all in the next week's Saturday 12 PM video. Be there.